Thank you all for coming tonight. My name is Connor Cochran, and for the last 5 years, 5.5 years now nearly, I've had the pleasure of working with that gentleman over there, Peter S. Beagle.
I would like to say, and I have always wanted to say this, ever since I was small and heard Victor Borge. Do you remember the Danish comedian? Victor Borge used to end his concerts saying to the audience, "Thank you for coming to my party. Thank you very much for coming to my party." He would also say, and I'm working on this one, he would say, "I am warmed by your laughter, and if just from time to time, in the middle of the laughter, a hand is raised, perhaps to wipe away a single tear, that is my reward." He would time it perfectly and then add, "The rest goes to the government." I will read you the beginning, or the near beginning. There's a prologue, but this is chapter 1, or the start of chapter 1 of I'm Afraid You've Got Dragons. And for those of you who may have heard similar things from termite inspectors or plumbers or similar folks of similar ilk, this may be familiar. It's just a world in which you could have dragons in your walls. Robert dreamed. It was the dream, the one that visited him so often that it had long since lost any terrifying aspect and become as drearily predictable as the ones in which he was being driven out of town by a jeering, laughing mob, or found himself suddenly naked and pink as a shrimp while kneeling to court Violette Elizabeth, the baker's daughter. Even so, the dream left him feeling strangely thrilled in a shivery sort of way when he woke to his mother's call from downstairs, "Gaius Aurelius! Gaius Aurelius Constantine!" "Not now, not now," he muttered into his pillow, turning over in forlorn pursuit of a few last fragments of sleep. But Adelise was on the bed already, pulling the coverlet back with her tiny fangs and tickling his ear with her forked tongue. He could hear clumsy Fernand scrambling for a purchase on the shaky bedstead, which meant that Lux would be next, and then Reynald, poor little Reynald, always last in everything. The call came again, "Gaius Aurelius Constantine Heliogabalus." He tried to shout, "I'm awake," but only managed to croak this time as he forced himself to sit up. What was in that new batch at Yarrow's last night? "Get away, Adelise, I'm awake, I'm awake. Oh, dear God, I'm dead, but I'm awake." Reynald's long scarlet head appeared above the edge of the bed, accompanied by a piercing squeak of triumph. "Reynald, keep it down. I'm not well." "Gaius Aurelius Constantine Heliogabalus Thrax. It's chestnut pancakes, and if you're not here in the kitchen in 2 minutes, it'll be hog slop." The three pigs, rooting disconsolately in the small pasture out back, could no more have passed as hogs than Robert could have, but Odilette Thrax was an optimist in all things. "And there's a job waiting, Gaius Aurelius." "Don't call me that!" It was enough of a bellow to send all 4 of the dragons scurrying as he lurched out of bed and began stiffly fumbling his way into his heavy working clothes. Robert's mother alternated between being his best friend and a headache to dwarf the one he already had. Sometimes she filled both positions simultaneously, but at all times he was extremely fond of her cooking. Adelise leaped to his shoulder as he clumped down the stair, her claws skidding on the dragon skin vest that he always wore to a job and whose origins she and the others never seemed to sense. He hated the vest and all the rest of the armor of his trade as he had never hated any item of clothing. All right, except for the silly green forester's cap that his mother had made him wear as a boy. But his customers took confidence in his appearance as some kind of emblem of his expertise, and it did have practical benefits in the day's work for all its uncomfortable stiffness. He reached up awkwardly to pet the carefully balanced dragonlet, feeling the feather softness of her deep green scales, which would not turn tough, almost impermeable, for another year yet. The women like them just like this in Dragon Market. The men want the yearlings. The thought of Dragon Market roiled his empty stomach as he sat down at his mother's table. She was at the stove with her back to him, cooking what amounted to her third breakfast of the morning. Robert's younger brothers, Carlos and Hector, were, of course, already out and at work behind a neighboring farmer's oxen, having left at dawn. Now Patience and Rosamond were racing through their own meal, late for lessons as usual, too hurried even to greet him. Robert loved his sisters, but he also envied them painfully. He'd always thought it unjust that village girls got to be properly educated, while boys must apprentice early and were lucky if they were taught to read and write at home as he had been. He often peered over his sisters' shoulders while they were studying, until they complained and their mother shooed him away. By the time Patience and Rosamond had left for the Schola, trailing promises of good behavior they would keep only if absolutely necessary, Robert had revised his opinion of the day. Chestnut pancakes browned perfectly at the edges, pomegranate syrup, fresh milk. There might be something to be said for living after all. Wolfing down his third cake, he asked with his mouth full, "Who's the engagé?" He never referred to the people who hired him as customers, that being a term favored by those in trade, the people who sold things rather than renting out their skills. In all honesty, he didn't actually care, but it mattered a great deal to his mother. She was intensely aware that her husband's work, now Robert's work by inheritance, assigned them to the lowest rung of a steep and unforgiving social ladder. Medwin and Norvin, behind the granary. Odalette turned then, frowning as she saw Adelize on his shoulder. Does she have to hear this? Go help the others with the beds, Adelize, Robert said gently. The dragonlet flicked out her tongue and spread her minuscule wings, their inner veins flushed purple as thunderclouds, then glided to the floor and scuttled up the stairs to Robert's bedroom. The four of them always did his bed first, no matter how often he tried to get them to alter their routine. Sometimes they even tried to make the bed with him still in it. When he was sure the little dragon was out of earshot, Robert turned back to his mother. Medwin and Norvin? That's nasty. Another cowed of serpens flamma vagrandis. I'll lay odds. It'll serve them right, not letting me sweep for eggs the last time. 6 seasons in a row, is it? You'd think they'd learn. They didn't like your father. They like you. Maybe you can convince them. Not much chance of that, so long as they both keep the books. They're too busy cheating each other to know a bargain once nothing's blistering their ankles. Oh, well, he sighed as he slid his seat back. More food on the table and new scrolls for the twins. There are worse livings. But later, after he'd left the house to gather up Ostwald and the day's tools, he had to confess to himself that he really couldn't think of any. I've been enjoying Robert a lot. Robert has a vision of a real life, a classy life, not this thing that he inherited from his father of being the Clark pesticide man, of spraying in the walls to get, to kill the dragons. Robert likes dragons, and he would never have chosen this if he'd had a choice at all. What he envisions is being a valet, a personal attendant to a prince or a duke. His mother holds out for a prince. Robert's willing to settle for anybody just to get out of here. But unfortunately, and that's what the dream is telling him, he has a destiny. Robert's going to hate his destiny. But that's the beginning of I'm Afraid You've Got Dragons.